hadn't seen Axel in over 10 years, and I got a text message on my cell phone. Hey, Baz, that's my nickname. It's Axel. You still around New York City?
I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sebastian Bach.
When any song from Angel Down comes on stereo, production-wise, it crushes my other records.
Welcome to part 2 of the rise of Sebastian Bach. Thanks to premier talent, Sebastian had been reinvented as an actor and was once again relevant in the public eye. Unlike his ex-band members in Skid Row who were struggling to get a spot anywhere, whether it be on radio or television, Sebastian was front and centre all over mainstream TV. He had a new generation of fans who not only loved him for his musical abilities, but also for his notoriety in Broadway, movies and television. He would continue to make TV appearances on reality TV, comedies and sitcoms throughout the rest of the decade, making appearances on shows like VH1 Supergroup, Trailer Park Boys, The Gilmore Girls, Celebrity Rap Superstar, Gone Country, Z-Rock and many more. He also did voiceover work in shows like Robot Chicken and SpongeBob SquarePants. Around 2004 he decided to return to music with a new band. On drums we had Bobby Jarzonbeck, on guitars we had Mike Cheslyak and Johnny Chromatic, and on bass we had Steve DiGiorgio. Moving forward, this would be his new live band and the band that would play on his next album release, Angel Down. As a performer in the mid-2000s, Sebastian was an absolute beast live that only seemed to be getting better. Sebastian had majorly levelled up in the vocal department thanks to his singing coach on Broadway, Michael Holon. Bach's speech-level singing voice had been restored to its original clarity. He no longer struggled like he did in the Subhuman Race era. He now had two singing styles at his disposal. He had the gritty screamo type vocals of Subhuman Race, armed with the clarity of his restored speech-level singing voice. This made Sebastian, in my opinion, a next-level, multi-talented performer. Some of his best performances around this time were at the Bang Your Head Music Festival in 2005 and the Udo Music Festival in 2006. They are some of his best in this decade and are a real return to form and then some. And if you haven't seen these performances, I highly recommend you check them out. By the year 2006, Sebastian would end up reconnecting with singer Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses via a text message. At first, Sebastian didn't actually believe it was Axl Rose, so he rang the number and sure enough it was the man himself at the other end of the phone. Sebastian had not seen or heard from Axl Rose in over 13 years, and mind you, the rest of the world hadn't seen much of Axl either. We were all wondering where he was and what he was doing. Apart from doing voice work in the PlayStation 2 video game GTA San Andreas and a few live performances with his new lineup of GNR, nobody had a clue where he was or what he was up to or when we might even see the new GNR album. With Axl Rose and Sebastian Bach being friends again, Sebastian would go out on the road with Guns N' Roses throughout 2006, singing alongside Axl in stadiums and at huge festivals like Rock am Ring and Download. That same year, for whatever reason, Ireland had its very own Download festival out in the RDS. On day 1, GNR headlined, and on day 2, Metallica headlined. If memory serves correctly, I could only afford one ticket, so I had a choice to make. See what I then considered to be a fake Guns N' Roses without Slash, Duff, Izzy, Adler or Matt, or see the mighty Metallica. I chose to go and see Metallica and get absolutely battered to bits in the pit with the boys. There was circle pits, walls of death and body slamming, all while Metallica played Master of Puppets in its entirety. It was awesome. My friends who went on day 1 though told me that Sebastian did show his face and kicked ass. This would have been his first appearance in Ireland since headlining the Point Depot back in November of '91 on the Slave to the Grind tour. Sebastian would also lend his voice to the new Guns N' Roses album Chinese Democracy for the song Sorry. Unfortunately, he seems to be turned right down in the mix, so it's not exactly the cameo you might be picturing in your head. It's a bit disappointing for me. But regardless, he does sing on a Guns N' Roses album, so that's pretty kick-ass. Sebastian singing live with Axl in front of oceans of people as a fan is really nice to see. They both have very different singing styles, and you can see Sebastian is doing his best not to outstage his buddy. That's true friendship and respect right there. I highly recommend checking out Guns N' Roses '06 at Donington if you haven't seen it already. In 2007, Sebastian would go into the studio to record his next album, Angel Down. Angel Down was recorded at Sound City Studios in North Hollywood and is special for a number of reasons. Unlike his previous solo releases, Angel Down was Sebastian's first solo all-studio record, and it featured Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses for 3 songs. They did a cover of Aerosmith's Back in the Saddle, Love is a Bitch Slap, and Stuck Inside. Wanting to milk Axl's appearance for all it was worth, the record company wanted to release 2 versions of the album, one with just Bach's vocals and the other with Axl and Bach together. But Sebastian told the label where they could stick that idea, and rightly so. Just like Slave to the Grind and Subhuman Race, the front cover features his dad's artwork. The album was produced by Roy Z, who's worked with the likes of Bruce Dickinson, Yngwie Malmsteen, Judas Priest, Sepultura and many others. Angel Down, in my opinion, was an album that everyone could like. Its sound was current but also reminiscent of the past Skid Row albums. It struck the right balance in my opinion. This album showed the world that Sebastian had grown as an artist and was ready to retake his throne. His ex-band, on the other hand, were continuing to circle the drain without him. A few months before Bach began recording Angel Down, Skid Row released their second album without Bach, titled Revolutions Per Minute. It's the album with the stupid wheel on the front. I've talked about it before, but just for comparison's sake, let's talk about it again. Now, I'm not trying to be a prick, I'm just trying to be honest. Revolutions Per Minute sounds like it was poorly recorded in a bathroom, whereas Angel Down sounds amazing. Revolutions Per Minute has only one track that I would consider good, where Angel Down has many tracks that I would consider amazing. Revolutions Per Minute doesn't even look or sound like a Skid Row record, whereas Angel Down looks and sounds like the past, present and future of Bach's career. So when you take all this into consideration, is it any wonder why the majority of Skid Row fans were in Bach's camp and not the band itself? Angel Down has an impressive list of songs that showcase Bach's versatility as a singer. The opening track, Angel Down, is an absolute powerhouse of a song with screamo type vocals, which was the popular style of metal in that decade. It has an intro that sends chills down your spine. It's heavier than you would expect Bach to be, but he pulls it off amazingly. You Don't Understand is the gem of this album. It showcases everything he has to offer as a singer. Just have a listen to this. I'll take a bullet for you in the night. Here's what we're fighting for all night. The vibrato, the high notes, the screams, the level of control he has as a singer is a thing of beauty, and it really shines through on this track. The things that Sebastian Bach is able to do isn't something every singer is able to pull off, and I think that's what makes him and this album very, very special. The album's ballad, By Your Side, is filled with emotion. It's a loving goodbye to his father who passed away, and is very reminiscent of songs like I Remember You and In a Darkened Room. Honestly, every song is a winner on this album. Whether you like hair metal, heavy metal, screamo or ballads, Angel Down has something special to offer. Angel Down was released on November 20th, 2007 and just by the skin of its teeth managed to chart on the Billboard Top 200 at position 191, coming and going in just a week. In other words, it completely bombed. This album in a lot of respects was far superior to Bach's previous #1 album, Slave to the Grind. In fact, it was by far one of the best metal albums of the decade. So what happened? Well, for one thing, the landscape of music and how people listened to it had drastically changed. Back when Slave to the Grind came out, a technology called SoundScan had been made available. It's basically a data collector for the music industry. Every time an album was bought and sold, SoundScan would count the sale, and this data was how your album would chart on the Billboard Top 200. It's still in use today under the name Luminate Data. But in the 2000s, music was a bit of a free-for-all. You had people at market stalls burning copies of albums and selling them for a fraction of the price places like HMV and Golden Discs were selling them for. You had illegal file-sharing sites like WinMX, BearShare and LimeWire making music freely available on the internet, so none of this was going to contribute to an artist's position in the charts. The label Sebastian released the album on just wasn't able to compete with the likes of Universal, so distribution of Angel Down was poor and is another contributing factor to why this album did so badly. But taking all of this into account, I don't think he did bad at all. The album, albeit a poor position, is still nonetheless a position. Revolutions per minute didn't even make the cut. Despite doing all the right things creatively, having good, eye-catching artwork and a solid set of tracks, despite Sebastian being all over television and having an album with Axl Rose on it, and despite the album being praised by critics, just like Skid Row, he had been pigeonholed onto classic rock radio stations that were only interested in playing his old material. In an effort to get the album put into rotation on radio, Sebastian went on a tour of morning radio shows trying to promote Angel Down. He figured if he talked about the album, the DJs would put it into rotation and actually play it. However, it wasn't all bad. The song By Your Side got substantial airplay in Brazil, and some other tracks made it into an episode of Trailer Park Boys. If you haven't listened to the album, please do. It's well worth a listen, and it holds up strong today. As I mentioned in the beginning, Bach had done a lot of reality TV shows during this time. The most interesting of the bunch were Supergroup, Gone Country, and Celebrity Rap Superstar. In the show Supergroup, he is put into a mansion in Las Vegas with the legendary guitarist Ted Nugent of Damn Yankees, bass player Scott Ian of Anthrax, drummer Jason Bonham, son of Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham, and guitarist Evan Seinfeld of Biohazard. The goal of the show was to create the ultimate rock band, a supergroup. Throughout its 7 episodes, we see the band come up with a name, record a demo, and do all sorts of other promotion in preparation for its final episode, which is a concert with label execs in attendance. Throughout the show, we see some big industry names make appearances like music manager Doc McGee and well-known photographer Ross Halfon. The band was such a random mix of personalities, ego, and musical styles, which made each episode hilarious and left you wondering just what the hell was going to happen next. It's a great insight into how a band comes together. We see the band rehearsing, going through the process of writing and recording a demo, coming up with a name and getting to know each other. Sebastian is ADHD run amok all throughout this series. There's plenty of highs and lows and emotional moments which make the show worth watching. Sebastian opens up about his father's death and how he felt at the time about his separation with Skid Row, which for any fan is a pretty interesting watch. The show Gone Country was a little different. In this show, its contestants are competing for a country record deal. We see Sebastian competing against Jermaine Jackson from the Jackson 5, Alan Kirkpatrick from NSYNC, actors Lorenzo Lamas, Mary Sean Young, Irene Carla, and American Idol finalist Michaela Gordon. We get to see the contestants stay in a big mansion, Big Brother style, and face various challenges together to get them into the country music spirit. To get them ready for their final episode, which is a country gig, where each contestant had to perform a song they wrote themselves to a big crowd and a panel of judges who are country music execs and radio DJs. Sebastian ended up winning the competition, just beating out Jermaine Jackson. He ended up recording and releasing a song called Battle with the Bottle, but that's about as far as it went. I'm not sure if the song even charted, but it's pretty good for a country song. Celebrity Rap Superstar was yet another challenge for Sebastian, as it was all about competing to be the best rapper. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of footage to go by, and the footage that is out there, well, it's in mashed potato quality. But back in the days of MySpace, I do remember him releasing a rap music video for a song he wrote, presumably for the show itself, but I haven't been able to find it. But, take my word for it, it does, or at least did, exist. From the beginning of the 2000s right to the end, Sebastian had managed to claw his way back to success. Despite having the odds stacked against him, he was once again a well-known and successful celebrity and artist. And that's where I'm going to leave this episode. To everyone who was eagerly awaiting this episode, I'm sorry I took so long, and hope it was worth the wait. Thank you so much for watching. In the next episode, I will be covering kicking and screaming, give 'em hell, and everything in between. So if you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much. Take care. Goodbye.